So I didn't see the whole interview, Jonathan, but I saw some other highlights. And I mean, you ask him about the claim of the U.S. Army bringing it to China as well, and he punted on that too, didn't he? Or he obfuscated and danced around it. What did you hear about that he said?
Well, that was probably the most revealing part of the interview, because he actually distanced himself and effectively disowned this conspiracy theory that's being pushed by the spokesman for the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs. This is one of the real sticking points in the U.S.-China relationship right now. The fact that the spokesman for the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs is literally publicly spreading a lie that the virus originated in a U.S. military laboratory and that was the way it started in Wuhan. And I asked Sway about this, and he refused to endorse it. He basically said he still thought it was crazy to spread such rumors. And he said that I would have to ask the spokesman if he had any evidence to support this. So that was probably the most newsworthy and revealing part of the interview.
I guess the part I read was where you mentioned it, and he goes, "I don't know. You'd have to ask him," which was like, well, you know, is that
right?
Is it something you're really trying to pass on? This is a strange time that we're in right now, Jonathan. It's almost like President Trump. It seems almost passive aggressive at times. He'll call it, refer to it as the Chinese virus, and then in the next sentence talk about how much he respects President Xi and how much he loves China and the people in China. So I'm not sure which way this is. He looking for some type of behavior modification he's trying to do with China on their side of things, do you think? What's he trying to accomplish there?
This sort of is a hallmark of his relations with China, which is he's still, despite, no matter what's going on really below the surface, whether, before the 2018 election, they were getting intel that China was trying to undermine Trump, or if they, having problems with trade, the president always tries to keep the personal relationship fairly warm between himself and President Xi. Obviously, right now, it's pretty strained. But it's really important, just from a reporting and just public information standpoint, that the first 3 weeks of this virus aren't swept under the rug. Because when you talk to epidemiologists who study the spread of these diseases, the first 3 weeks is really, really critical. And there's been a study at the University of Southampton that shows that if China intervened 3 weeks earlier, that there'd be 95% fewer reduction of cases of the coronavirus and far less geographic spread. But instead of that, they arrested the doctors who were trying to blow the whistle about this. They made them publicly retract it. They censored social media, all references to the virus, and they put out false information saying that it wasn't spreading between humans. This is 3 weeks after doctors were blowing the whistle about this virus.
So, Jonathan, we need cooperation with just about every country in the world for this. Are we going to be able? Do we need to worry about China subverting our efforts to deal with the virus at some point, whether it's medical equipment or precursors to pharmaceuticals? Do you think it could get to that point?
Well, there have been threats in some Chinese state media. My understanding from talking to people who follow this closely is it's mostly from the real provocateurs and shouldn't necessarily be taken as a threat from the Chinese government. So hopefully it doesn't get to that point. But the relations are very, very strained, and particularly when you have this propaganda effort from the Chinese. That's why it was important. Like when I questioned the ambassador, he was trying to set a new direction and say to separate himself from this spokesman. But the fact is the spokesman is still doubling down. And when you've got the spokesman for the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs alleging publicly that this virus came from the U.S. military laboratory, it's pretty hard to have a productive working relationship about how to deal with the virus.
Jonathan, are things getting back to normal in your view? Do you believe it in Hubei and Wuhan? I've heard they're not testing anymore. That's why there's no new cases. But then I also hear that people are back to work and people that are doing business there, that some of the factories are open. Starbucks is open. Apple's open. It seems like it would be hard to, if things hadn't improved, it would be hard to sugarcoat it for what we hear over here. Do you believe that over there?
Oh, I don't think anyone doubts. To be clear, I'm not doubting that.
I'm not saying
China,
you are. I'm just
after that, No. China took, as you can when you're the way that society is arranged, they took extraordinary measures and from all accounts have done a very impressive job after that initial 3 weeks. The problem was in those initial 3 weeks, so many people spread around the world with the virus. But with China, the problem is you can't really trust the data that's coming out of it. We don't have a good grasp on what the cases are. And what the ambassador said to me, which is true, is that people are worried about a second wave of the virus. So yes, things have moved in a positive direction in China, but people there aren't, doing cartwheels yet.